I've always been scared of the dark, but at the same time, I've always been drawn to all the horrible things I can imagine crawling about in it. There's no logic to it, but I still find myself checking the entirety of the house every night before I go to sleep. Even afterwards, when I'm in bed, my brain paints an image of strange beings leaving their hiding spots, now safe from my nightly surveillance. I scare myself with this, of course, but there's wonder there too. They say that the more your rationale strays towards paranoia, or maybe a faulty sense of logic of perceiving the world, the more likely you'll be able to see the supernatural. In short, if you think illogically, you'll see the illogical. If that's the case, it's no wonder that someone like me has seen some things. Never in my own house, though, thankfully. However, the story I'm about to tell does take place in one. Now, I've seen a ghost before, and I've seen something I thought could have been a ghost, but never had I encountered something before like what I had found in that house. It was a rainy weekend in March when I stayed the night. It was a long-abandoned, run-down house not far from my own. Surprising, right? To stay the night at such a place? It never stops being terrifying, but that's part of the fun. At the corner end of an aged neighborhood, it stood meekly behind an overgrown yard. Combined with its rusted gutter, broken windows, and flaking paint, the house had a classic haunted feeling to it. Its insides were no less impressive. Devoid of furniture, the house sported sparingly little decorations beyond peeling wallpaper and tattered curtains. The true decorator, though, was nature and the passage of time. Thick layers of dust on creaking floorboards, black mold gathered in corners, fragments of glass and dead leaves at the foot of windows, yellowed and bloated portions of the ceiling where the rain had left its mark, and cracks and holes where it had worn through. It was raining especially hard that night. I had brought an umbrella, sleeping bag, and a book to read. These things I had already set up in the basement where the rain nearly did not reach. I would go there to relax and sleep later, but before that I took my time walking around the house. Something about the rain brought out a new experience altogether. New smells, streams of water here and there, and a muffling of the outside world so much that you would think the windows were back up and fixed. It was amazingly eerie. Walking through that empty, decrepit house, pausing before pushing through half-open doors with a nervous expectancy, I found myself wondering if ghosts ever feared their own kind. If maybe monsters of the night were also afraid of us. I felt a certain empathy for the darkness that still felt so heavy against me. Before I returned to the basement, I nearly choked out an apology. It would have been directed at whatever may have been haunting that abandoned house. But through trembling lips, nothing came out. I only managed to wave goodbye, then opened the door to the basement and descended its concrete steps. It wasn't long before I was stuffed into my sleeping bag, turning the pages of my book while listening to the hushed rainfall above. Between the few odd droplets that ever so often found their way in, I would look up and check the door at the top of the stairs. Slowly, my eyes grew heavy, and in time I drifted off to sleep. Then I was awake. I had been brought out of my slumber from a rhythmic tapping at the basement door. Every few seconds, there was a rapping, 2 small knocks against its frame, as if someone were tapping their fingers against the door instead of knocking with their fist. It was barely audible over the rain above. For a while I listened, just thinking it was my imagination, half hoping it was more, half hoping it was less. When I was certain my ears weren't playing tricks on me, and when I was able to swallow my fears, I got up and illuminated the darkness with my phone's light. Before I even stepped foot on those stairs, I had already lost the courage I had built up. There at the top of the stairs was a shadow. I could perceive movement from it. It was just small enough to slip under the door frame. It came up and wrapped itself backwards against the side of the door that faced into the basement. Every few seconds it undulated, and then tapped itself against the door frame. I had seen a ghost before, only for a brief moment, and I've seen something that I thought could have been a ghost, and Maybe it was a wild animal, but this was unmistakable. And the moment lasted far too long. I was frozen in place, and that moment was not ending. Was this thing beckoning me, or was it beckoning itself? As I asked this question, I became aware of a door opposite the staircase, one that I certainly could not have missed when I first came into the basement. I bit down on the inside of my mouth to check if I was dreaming. I wasn't. There were now two options presented to me. I could face the apparition at the top of the staircase, the appendage of some entity on the other side I could still not fully make out, nor did I wish to, or I could open this new door. This door that had not been there before, but presented no threat of the unknown. Both called to me, one out of fear and wonder, and the other out of safety and retreat. And so, I made my decision. It took some time, but I was finally on the staircase. Halfway up, though, the appendage retreated. Something else was pushed through in its place. A clean white cut of paper flew out. It tumbled, and I met it only a few steps away from the door. The wrapping had stopped. I could see nothing more under the gap of the door. On that fresh, clean white cardstock, however, was the following. "It's not safe here. Use the second basement." Odd phrasing, I had thought. Was it not safe on the other side of the door? I only heard rain now. Was it not safe in this basement? I turned around, scanning the empty box of a room, and saw nothing beyond my own gear. Instinctively, though, I knew what it meant by the second basement. It was that other door at the bottom of the stairs, the one no conceivable threat had emanated from. At that point, I recalled my prior empathy for the darkness, earlier when I was walking the house. Maybe my fear had judged that thing too quickly. And with that thought, I paced back down the stairs. In the moment I took, bending down to start packing away my things, I heard a crash from above. I turned between the two basement doors, and then the rain from above picked up into a storm. Unsure of how much time I had, I opened the door to the second basement, thanked the haunts of that house, and stepped through. As soon as I closed the door behind me, there was absolute silence. Ahead of me, my phone lit a set of concrete stairs. Each step quickly grew steeper than the last, their condition worsening in tandem until there was what appeared to be a singular chasm hewn out of dirt and stone. I pressed my back against the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. I had never considered that monsters might lie to you. Even now, I'm still falling down that chasm. Writing long form on a phone like this? Well, it's hard. Somehow I get the feeling I'll have time to write even more, though. I just keep falling. Maybe I'll start writing my own spooky stories to pass the time.